What's up, everybody? I'm the Unspecialist, and this is the Unspecial edition. My data has been stolen.
So mine, you know.
What then are my first steps?
For time and time again, there have been multiple Facebook posts, different rants by different people about data breaches. We know the famous one with Cambridge Analytica, even being used right here in the Caribbean. So in very simple terms, hackers get data, sell data to persons who then use data to steal money and value from anyone. Right. So it is in very simple terms, no complex. I'm not going to talk about encryption and cryptography and different ports being open. We're not going to discuss that. Just simple. A guy with a computer, electronic device, having the ability and skills and tools to intrude into systems that are supposed to be secure and somewhat secured, but a human creative mind, I like to call them, being able to use tools that are all man-made to get into systems and get data out.
If you enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel. Be sure to drop a like, share the video to help as many people as possible. Say something in the comments, and be sure to give us ideas for topics that we can cover in future. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, we'd welcome you too. So you would have heard about the situation where Republic Bank customers, Citizens Bank customers would have been exposed to financial fraud. To those people, what would you say are the first steps or the immediate actions that they can take to protect themselves?
I have not lost any money from my account in my using, but I know a lot of friends who have experience with the two banking institutions you mentioned had that experience. I have not had it. And one of the first things I do is email the bank. Yeah, the bank always sends a well in Republic Bank, because I'm a Republic Bank customer. They always email the bank, hey, this is the issue, and just have the internal cybersecurity team respond or the banking team respond. Second thing to do, because it's your data, and a hacker would not only go for one piece of information, go as much as possible. That person will look for stuff in your email, your phone number. Once you inform your bank, change your password, change your login for your app if you use the app. Next step, change your email password. Turn on two-factor authentication. These things that are simple, you'll hear in a regular cybersecurity lecture. Some random guy, if you work at a company or government institution, they'll say, oh, must always change your password every 6 months or 60 days or 30 days. You know, and we usually ignore those, okay, whatever you were always talking about, cybersecurity person. So those are your first steps, and let me repeat them. 1, inform the bank. 2, change all your passwords. And the third step is to inform colleagues and friends that something has happened. You inform me.
Right.
And we started this. That's how this
happened. Yeah.
This happened.
You don't ever want to be victimized and then tell no one.
Yeah. And this is a general thing. Anytime something happens to you, from young you learn, tell somebody.
Right.
You know, if you see something, say something.
Right.
So those are your first steps. And that's for you as an individual. For persons who have a company, I would suggest you getting professional help. Someone who's qualified and experienced. I even recommend getting professional help from some individuals, because they just don't know what's going on. They're just lost. This is how you set up better password. These are the things a password must have. It must have a capital letter anywhere in the password. Don't have to be the beginning, don't have to be the end. And it must have a unique character. It must have numbers. It must be 8, 10, 12 characters. But most of us in this beautiful republic that we call Guyana don't adhere to those things. We see it on somebody puts online, the NDA maybe put out some warning, our cybersecurity architecture in the country will put out stuff for Cybersecurity Month, and it's there, it's in the public domain, but few of us who are not into technology would not go look for it and share it. So Get professional help will be my next step. So after you did your immediate response, second thing is get professional help to help you secure all of your accounts. If you have social media accounts, every single social media account, make sure that two-factor authentication is turned on. In the case of Facebook, make sure if you set your account for recover, you choose 3 or 4 close family members for them to send a password or recover the code to. Some persons, when they turn on two-factor authentication, there's still a level of vulnerability. And I'll come down to this in the end, but I'll just mention it now. Any system created on this earth by us human beings can be compromised by us human beings. And saying that statement, all you're doing is making it more difficult for these creative minds, some people call them hackers, to get into your system.
I think that's great advice, because when you look at it, even something as simple as protecting your home, the fence, the barbed wire, none of that actually is perfect in defending your home. It's simply a deterrent to make it more difficult to get into your house and steal whatever valuables you may have inside. I also want to point out another piece of advice you mentioned, which is even though the data breach or the data that's been lost had to do with your bank account, you mentioned changing passwords and securing yourself on all your accounts, social media or anything else that you have online. And I think that's important. Even if you were not affected by this situation.
Like me, I had to go change all my passwords, everything, because here's the thing. I grew up on the Golden Grove on the East Coast, and there's a saying that once your neighbor house on fire, right, you go up here and you throw water on yours. And we're applying that same country principle to these technological things. If you hear about your friend, same banking institution have an issue, go change all your passwords. You understand? In some cases, some persons just have to go and get new cards.
Right. Let it be a reminder to protect yourself. And that's actually something I did say. If you were affected, make sure to replace your card, because the measures that the bank put in place and announced that they put in place clearly doesn't prevent the cards from being compromised. So if your card was compromised, you absolutely have to replace it.
Before we move on, I'd like to point out for persons who will be listening to this, some practical advice, because we could talk a lot, but we need to take some action. That action is, there's a website called haveibeenpawned.com. You'll see it on your screen. Basically, it's a website you go, you type in your email address, and it tells you, right? If you have multiple email addresses, put in all. It tells you if your email address has been part of a leaked data set. What does a leaked data set mean? Basically, it is a leaked list of information on the dark web. What is the dark web? Dark web is like the ghetto part of the internet where criminals lie and they trade the data and the data sets. It's a very dark, lonely hood where clearly they're not doing anything legal and professional there.
Right.
So that's a website that I want persons to just type in the email. I could confess this publicly. My email has appeared on over 14 different data dumps.
Wow.
When I type in my email, so I am publicly disclosing how many times my data has been sold on the dark web in illegal dumps or on a valuable website in some way or form. And it would be fun to see different persons commenting under this video. When they type in the email, it show up on 2, 3. Somebody can say, 20. Because we did not do the necessary cybersecurity steps. We didn't follow. I'm sure whether you go to school, work, university, somebody had a conversation with you on encryption, on right passwords to use, or how not to click on links, or to fill out forms they don't know. We have heard this before. We're not repeating anything that persons don't know, but it only gets serious when it gets practical. And there's a time where it's serious. and we have to take some practical steps.
We just discussed immediate action, stuff that you can do in the moment, essentially as a reaction to something like this, as well as a few protections that you can take as well. But I want to get deeper into this talk about protections. What about long-term protections or changes to your habits online? What advice would you have for people?
Now, that is what will help us as a country. The culture of our digital assets needs to be taken a bit more seriously. And it can't just be something when we have this issue with the banks. Because I have known of cybersecurity incidents happen at government institutions. There's one Caribbean country where hackers took over a government website, took over a government server connected to a government website. And most times it's not disclosed to the public. So there are persons who looking at this video, two guys talking about cybersecurity and don't know that their email is on 20 different, or in my case, 14 different dumps. As an individual, you have your personal cybersecurity stuff you need to protect. If you have a business, get professional long-term help. What does professional long-term help look like? There are different companies in Guyana. There are a number of ICT companies who can provide for you backup service, the right router, physical firewall, could recommend something cheap, something expensive, based on the budget of the particular business. As an individual, you need to do two things. Make a note that all your passwords going forward must conform to a stringent method of difficulty. If the maximum character is 10, don't put 8 or 6, which is the minimum. Put 10. And consistently change the password every 60 days, 30 days. Set a reminder in your phone. A recurring, hey, please change your password. Hey, please change your password. Secondly, some of the things that you can do is use more encrypted tools. Like, don't use the default browser on any device given, because chances are there are vulnerabilities built in there. I use Firefox. I use a few others that we'll put up on screen afterwards that offer a bit more protection from a browser standpoint. Also, if you have a mobile device, turn on the encryption. Thirdly, look for places where you can get cybersecurity training or sensitization. There are a lot of them offering free. I like to reference late last year, the Guyana Manufacturing Association, in partnership with Firemines and GDT Business Solution, had one for businesses. And it was very good. You had a list of companies, including Firemines, GGT, Company out of Trinidad, all presenting what they can do for business. And in some cases, what are some of the growing threats for your business? And the team was safeguarding your business from cybercrime. And I think that's a good step by the private sector. I know at some point, I think GCCI had something in the past. And these things, business people should find their way there. Don't just send your IT guy. If you're a business owner, then you should be at the event, because it will help you when somebody says, hey, we have to buy this particular server, we have to buy this license. It will protect you from X, Y, and Z, but it won't protect you from this. Your firewall will deal with your networking stuff, but if somebody gets an email, a legitimate email, or apparently legitimate email, and they click on a link, having the right backup or internal safeguards can save you from such an issue. So different levels of protection. I really don't like to bore people with some of the deeply technical stuff, because once you say long term, I could sit here and poster, oh, you need a cybersecurity plan. This plan must be developed for the next 20 years or whatever. That is not practical.
Right.
What people need is okay, my data has been stolen, I've lost information. What can I do? Meet with a professional. Any professional worth their salt will do two things at first. First thing they'll do, they'll take a look at all of your systems and they will do a risk assessment. And once you're trained with ISACA and you have ITIL or COBIT or you did ISO 27001, it will let you do a full assessment of all the devices, how they're configured, how they're connected, your router, everything. And then give you a report on what you need to do going forward. Not everything in the report would be necessary immediately. I think that's a good long-term method. Long-term is one, contact a professional. Two, have the professional do a full risk assessment of your business. Even if you have an IT guy, don't let your IT guy do it. Yeah, don't let your service provider internally do it because he'll always find everything is all dandy. Let a third party, independent third party, come in
and do that risk assessment.
Because any recommendation I make on this podcast can be misapplied.
Right.
So the only sensible response I can make is to, one, have a proper risk assessment done by a professional, and I emphasize on being a professional. And then from that, the report coming out of and recommendations coming out of that risk assessment would be able to carry you in a direction. So some companies get hacked once and they get hacked 2-3 times after that. But by the time the hackers come the third and fourth time, they're well prepared. Right. They have zero downtime.
Given that we're talking about protections and you're always emphasizing the practicality of these solutions, we know that beyond data, some persons have lost money. What would you say to the people to have them protect their funds? Because many of them were exposed through compromised debit cards.
Right.
What would you suggest as the best protections for those persons when it comes to protecting their funds in the event their data is compromised in future?
Right. So you said compromised debit cards. So somebody listening to this now and said compromised debit cards. Well, I have a card. Is this a debit card or a credit card? Some cards will have the word debit on it. But the card we're talking about from these two institutions you mentioned pull from current funds.
Correct.
A credit card is essentially a loan card you're walking around with. A loan card could be based on secured loan, meaning that you have $100,000 in the bank, and the credit card is they're lending you $100,000 limit when you go anywhere in the world
to spend, right?
To spend. So it's essentially like a debit card, but not directly. Because the debit card pulls from an account, what I have realized by observation is that if I have a debit card and I have one account that connected to debit card, I have another account that no card is connected to. You could have your money in different banks and different places. If you're a business, you can probably do the same thing, to have your personal funds one way, business funds next way, and then have some savings somewhere else. So one, don't have all your money in one bank. And if this bank account has your debit card, even if it's in the same institution, whichever the institution, you have a secondary account that has no card connected to it. So if you need funds in the account that a debit card is connected to, what you can do, right, is transfer the funds, because it's the same bank, transfer it very quickly over to the account with your card. Right. What that will do is allow you to access your funds immediately, right? And even if it is compromised, if somebody compromised my card right now, like just run and take my card, get my PIN, you still do not have access to the account that would have the money that I need to put on there, because it's separate. And this is a principle, I don't want to get too technical, but separation of power, separation of duties is a principle you see in accounts, you see in cybersecurity.
See it in government.
You see it in government, yes, that's true. All right. So what that does, it allows for you to manage your money, one, and And then two, it allows you that even if somebody physically takes your card,
Right.
gets your PIN, they wouldn't be able to access all your funds.
We know that this isn't the first time Guyana, companies in Guyana, or even individuals have suffered cyber attacks, and it's definitely not going to be the last. You've already given us a lot of information about measures that we can take to protect ourselves, protect our funds, and how we can even help our family members and those close to us. Is there anything else that you would have as recommendations for the people that are watching us?
Yeah, for those specifically in Guyana, because this is going on internet, I will recommend the Guyana National Computer Incident Response Team. You can get them very easily, CIRT.GY. It is the governing body for cybersecurity incident response. So like when there's a fire, you call the firemen. When there's a cybersecurity issue, you call the CIRT.GY. Not the most fancy name, but you go there, you can do two things that are very critical. You can report an incident as a company individual, you have to sign up and that kind of thing. Get an account so you can report something with you, your family, or your business. And they have some tips and best practices. It's really the place where you go to get information, apart from you doing your regular Google search and looking at your YouTube videos on how to protect yourself, do a better password, encrypt your phone, do those kinds of things. Guyana is growing, and more people, more eyes are being looked at Guyana. And all the hackers on the underworld say, hey, Guyana now have wealth. Let's see if we could get into the systems. That's really what's driving this. And I would not be surprised if, as we continue to report oil and gas rents and income, cybersecurity actors from different parts of the world see Guyana as a soft target and continue to attack our financial institutions, our government institutions, and of course, individuals and private sector, you know? And they have some good security tips and alerts that I think persons should so familiarize themselves, not just IT people. I don't want us to be like if you're not an IT person, if you don't have like a degree in IT, or you're not some big, bright person in IT, then you can't understand. It's in simple language. If it's something that's too complex, as I said before, seek a professional.
I know we're here to talk about cybersecurity, protecting yourself, and all these things, but I have to say that that's a nice dashiki top you have on there.
This is actually my late father's shirt. It's something that reminds me of him. I do it one to honor him, and two because it's our first episode. You'll always remember your first. And I wore the shirt just to mark this in my own memory years to come when we look back at this episode. I remember I wore my father's shirt. May not be the newest shirt, but it definitely helps with my memory. Yeah.
As we close out, I want to point out something that you mentioned very early on in our discussion, and I think it's very important. And it's a good reflection actually of the human condition and everything that we deal with in life. If you can build it, you can't break it. And that's the mindset that you have to apply to protecting anything in your life, whether it's your home, yourself, or in this case, your data and your funds. So I want to thank you for sharing that and everything else that you've shared with us today. This has been a really good contribution on our very first episode of the Unspecial edition. So thank you very much. And I really hope that what you've done here is useful for the people. And I'm sure your father would be proud to see you in your shirt, sharing information that can help hundreds, if not thousands, if not even more people protect themselves from things like this and other vulnerabilities, present and future. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for making it to the end of this video on YouTube. If you enjoy the content, be sure to drop a like, share the video to help as many people as possible. Don't be afraid to give us suggestions in the comment section for future topics or ideas to cover on the show. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, we'd welcome you too. Thanks for watching.